Kraft presents The Great Gildersleeve. The Kraft Cheese Company, who also bring you Bing Crosby every Thursday night, present each week at this time Harold Perry as The Great Gildersleeve, written by John Whedon. We'll hear from The Great Gildersleeve in just a moment. I'm sure you've all noticed how everybody has pitched in since last December 7th, working harder than ever before. No, it didn't take us Americans long to see we had to work to win. Yes, and hard work burns up lots of energy that has to be replaced by the food we eat. So I'm sure you'll want to know about a wholesome energy food that your family is sure to like. That food is delicious Parquet margarine, the economical spread for bread made by Kraft, and it's one of the best energy foods you can serve. What's more, Parquet is a reliable year-round source of important vitamin A. Yes, Parquet margarine is mighty good for you, and you'll find it's mighty good tasting, too. Parquet is the margarine that tastes so deliciously good you'll really want to serve it. So tomorrow, ask your dealer for a pound or two of Parquet, P-A-R-K-A-Y. Parquet margarine made by Kraft. And now let's join our friend, the Great Gildersleeve, who stands this morning on the threshold of a new career. He comes down to breakfast with a spring in his step and a light in his eye. For this is the day of his inauguration as Water Commissioner of Summerfield.
Ready now. Here he comes. And don't forget to bow.
Good morning, Commissioner.
Oh, good morning, slaves. Marjorie, Leroy. Good morning, one and all.
Leroy, pull out the commissioner's chair for him.
Sure. Lights this way, Commissioner.
Thank you, my boy.
Won't you sit down?
No tricks now.
No, sir.
Well, there we are. What's this in front of my place? A nosegay?
For your buttonhole.
Oh, that was sweet of you, my dear. Or did Leroy pick these posies?
Are you kidding?
You better start right in, Uncle Mort. Bertie's making waffles.
Waffles?
Yes, sir. Coming right up.
Oh, Bertie, you're psychic.
Yes, I think I must be. The things that go on.
What things, Bertie?
Well, I dreamt a dream last night, Mr. Gildersleeve, and I sure wish you'd explain it.
What was it, Bertie?
Well, I dreamt there was a globe of the world, and then I saw Mr. Wilkie running around it like mad.
Well, you've been reading the newspapers. Go on.
And then I saw Miss Roosevelt, and she was running around the world, too.
Yeah? What is it you don't understand, Bertie?
Who is trying to catch who?
Oh, Bertie. You're going to let the international situation ruin those waffles?
Oh, my goodness.
I spent a very interesting and profitable evening myself last night, children.
How?
Well, to prepare for my new post as water commissioner, I took the encyclopedia to bed with me. And do you know, I found some things in there I never even knew before.
Oh, you probably just forgot them, huh?
What were you looking up, Uncle Mort?
Water. Do you know, Marjorie, that 3/4 of the Earth's surface is covered with water?
Really? I think you better drink your orange juice, Uncle Mort. The waffles are waiting.
Yes, sir. 3/4 of the Earth's surface, water. What do you think of that?
Too much water.
There's no such thing as too much water. Water is very important. Did you ever stop to think, young man, where Columbus would have been without water?
I don't know. Home in bed, I guess.
He'd have been high and dry, and you and I wouldn't be here today.
You won't get to the office today if you don't stop talking and eat, Commissioner.
Oh, you're right, my dear. Bertie, if those waffles are ready, I am.
Coming right up, Miss Gildersleeve.
Water, yes, water is very important. People don't appreciate water.
Here you are, Miss Gildersleeve.
Bertie, do you know what James Watt couldn't have invented the steam engine without?
No, sir.
Water.
Is that a fact?
Absolutely.
It's lucky they gave him some.
You know what I think, Commissioner? I think you've got water on the brain.
All right, you can laugh, young man, but water is one of the most important things in the world. Now, you take Robert Fulton, invented the steamboat, 1807. Couldn't have done it without water. DeWitt Clinton, Erie Canal, 1825, water. Ponce de Leon, the Fountain of Youth, water. Balboa, the Pacific, water. The Monitor and the Merrimack, water. Bertie, bring me some more water.
Uncle Mort, I don't want to change the subject.
Yeah?
But can we have a weenie roast today?
Who's we?
Me and Piggy and the gang. We're going on a hike.
Well, I guess so, if it's all right with Bertie.
Gee, thanks, Unc.
You picked kind of a hot day for a hike, though, didn't you?
Well, we didn't know it was going to be so hot.
You'd never think it was the middle of October, would you?
Well, we usually get one late hot spell, my dear. And by the way, speaking of heat, do you know how many days a camel can go without water?
Speaking of water, Uncle Mort, do you know what time it is?
Oh, my goodness, I gotta be going. I can't be late the first day on the job.
Don't forget your flowers, Uncle Mort.
Huh?
Here, let me put them in your buttonhole.
Oh, thank you, my dear.
Oh, and your tie's crooked.
It is?
There. And what about your handkerchief?
Right in my pocket.
Oh, it should stick out a little.
Oh.
Now, you look more like a water commissioner.
Oh, thank you, my dear.
Well, you're all set, I guess. Good luck.
Yeah, good luck, Unc.
Thank you.
What is it? Have you forgotten something?
No, I was just wondering.
Wondering what?
What on earth does a water commissioner do?
Goodbye, Uncle Mort.
Goodbye, Marjorie.
Oh, Throckmorton.
Good morning, Mrs. Ransom.
Are you leaving so early?
As a matter of fact, I'm not early. I'm late.
Well, I won't keep you then. I just came over to wish you success.
Oh, thank you.
And to bring you flowers for your buttonhole. Oh, but I see you've already got one. I guess some other gal...
There's always room for one more. Flower, I mean.
Oh. Well, I brought you a bachelor's button because you're such a dyed-in-the-wool bachelor.
Well, I may be dyed in the wool, but I'm not dead yet. Yeah, I gotta go, Leela. I gotta go.
Oh, wait a minute, Throckmorton. Let me put this flower in your buttonhole.
Oh, thank you. Oh, Leela?
Yes, Throckmorton.
Did you know that a cubic foot of water weighs 62.5 pounds?
Oh, hello, Mr. Gildersleeve.
Hello, Peavy. I'm in a hurry. Got to get down to the office. I'd like some cigars.
Guess we can fix you up, Mr. Gildersleeve. You want the usual, I suppose.
Yes, the perfectos. I'll take 3. How have you been?
Well, to tell you the truth, Mr. Gildersleeve...
Not so good, eh? Well, I'll tell you what to do. You want to drink more water?
More water?
Yes, everybody ought to drink more water. Half the troubles of this world would be eliminated, Peavy, if people drank more water.
Well, no, I wouldn't say that.
It's true. You could take all those medicines you've got there and pour them down the sewer for all the good they'll do. Water, that's the thing. You ought to drink 10 or 12 glasses of it every day.
Well, no, that's a lot of water.
Best thing in the world for you. I'll tell you something, Peavy. Do you know that the human body is 90% water?
Is that a fact?
Absolutely. 90% water.
Well, then I don't see why we should drink any more.
I haven't got time to argue with you, Peavy. Those are the facts. You can take them or leave them. How much is that? 30 cents?
And one is 31. Have you got a penny?
Yeah, that darn penny. No, I haven't.
I don't want to leave you with the impression that I have anything against water, Mr. Gildersleeve. I usually take some with every meal. So does Mrs. Peavy.
It's all right, all right. Give me my change. I'm late now.
You understand, it's just that I believe in moderation.
Peavy, you'll die of moderation.
Well, now, I wouldn't...
Goodbye, Peavy.
Goodbye, Mr. Gildersleeve.
Pardon me. Could you tell me where the office of the water department is?
Right down the hall. You see where that fellow's painting the name on the door?
Oh, yes. Much obliged. Oh, and it's my name, too. Name on the door and everything. Water Department, Throckmorton P. Gildersleeve.
Talking to me, son?
No. I was just admiring your work.
Oh, well, it ain't art, maybe, but it's a living, sort of.
Yeah, there's just one thing. I'm afraid you've made a slight error.
Maybe you could do it better.
Oh, no. I have no fault to find with your technique. It's the spelling. There's another E in Gildersleeve.
But don't tell me. This is the way she gave it to me.
But I happen
This is the way she gave it to me. I've got it on a piece of paper.
I got it on a piece of paper, too. My birth certificate.
I don't know about that, son. This is the way she spelled it. If you got any complaints, you'll have to take it up with her.
Her? Who's her?
Oh, hatchet face inside.
Yeah.
Boy, I've met some bossy dames in my time. Even married one. But that old battle axe takes the marbles.
We'll soon see who's running this department. Can I get through here?
Don't smear it now.
Miss, madam.
I'll be with you in just a moment.
Oh, excuse me.
You'll find an application form there on the counter. Just fill it out.
But I don't want to...
I'm sorry, that's the rule. No service without an application.
You don't understand. My name is...
Name on the first line, please. Last name first, then first name and middle initial.
Look, is this the water department?
That's right. There'll be a deposit of $2, which will be deducted from your first month's bill.
My dear woman, do you see this door? Oh!
No, you went and spoiled it.
Sorry. You see that name? Throckmorton P. Gildersleeve? That's me.
Oh, won't you come in, Mr. Gildersleeve?
Thank you.
If you'll follow me, I'll show you to your office.
Well, nice little layout here. Small, but cozy.
I beg your pardon?
I said it was cozy.
Oh.
Maybe I'm wrong.
Allow me to introduce myself. I'm Miss Fitch.
Oh, how do you do, Miss Fitch?
I've been 33 years with the water department and never missed a day.
That's a shame. I think you ought to get a day off.
May I assure you of my every cooperation? If there's anything you want, please bring for me. I've cleared out the desk. You'll find a coat closet, wash basin in there. The phone works on a buzzer. I go to lunch at 12:30.
Oh, Miss Fitch, just a moment.
Yes?
Who's the old geezer in the picture there?
He was Summerfield's first water commissioner.
Oh. Funny-looking old coot, wasn't he?
He happened to be my father.
You. I'm sorry. The picture probably didn't do him justice.
Well, it wasn't all that it might have been.
Miss Fitch.
Yes?
Don't leave me alone in here.
I'm afraid I don't understand.
I'm new here. I don't know the first thing about this. What do I do?
Do?
Yes. Now that I'm commissioner, shouldn't I be doing something?
Mr. Clanahan never did. He always left things to me.
I always suspected Clanahan of that.
I'm sorry, Mr. Gildersleeve. If my services are not satisfactory, I shall be glad to tender my resignation.
Oh, no, I didn't mean that. You're perfectly satisfactory, Miss Fitch. You're wonderful. It's just that, well, if I'm commissioner, I think I ought to be doing something. Going over the bills or something.
Well, it's never been handled that way. But if you insist, I've been getting up a list of the delinquents.
Delinquents? You mean people who haven't paid their bills?
Yes.
Oh, let's have a look at that. That ought to be fun.
I'll bring it in.
Thank you.
Where is he? Where's Gildersleeve?
Just a moment, please. Did you wish to see someone?
Yes, and there he is. Gildersleeve.
Hello, Judge. How did you get in?
I walked in. Gildersleeve, I want an explanation.
Judge, you've come to the right place. What do you want explained? We explain anything.
I want to know why my water was turned off.
Oh, well, we'll have to look into this. Water turned off, eh?
You know darn well it was turned off.
I'll have to take this up with our Miss Fitch. I'll ring for her. Sit down.
I don't want to sit down.
All right, stand up.
I don't want to stand up. You don't have to put on this act with me, Throckmorton. I know what's back of this. It's spite, pure and simple.
Now, Judge, there isn't an ounce of spite in my whole nature, and you know it.
Yeah, you're just like every other small-time politician. The minute you get a little authority, you start making a petty nuisance of yourself. I'll tell you what's wrong with you, Gildersleeve. You're drunk with power.
Did you want to see Mr. Gildersleeve?
Oh, yes, Miss Fitch. Have you that list of people who haven't paid their bills?
Yes, right here.
You sure you're not just a teensy bit delinquent, Judge?
Are you accusing me of not paying my bills, Gildersleeve? Such a thing as libel, remember?
I'm not accusing you of anything, Judge. Let's look at the record.
Of course, there might have been some mistake.
Not with our Miss Fitch.
I mean, it might have slipped my mind.
Oh, starting to crawl, eh? Let's see. E, F, G. Oh, here are the H's. And lo, Judge Hooker's name led all the rest, with $11.86. Is that right, Miss Fitch?
That's right, Mr. Gildersleeve. And Mr. Clanahan's last instructions were to stop service on all unpaid bills.
Oh, Clanahan. That explains it.
No, Judge. The $11.86 explains it.
Well, get somebody over there and have the water turned on right away, will you?
Glad to, Judge, the minute you pay up.
As a matter of fact, Gildy, I haven't got the cash on me. It's Saturday. The bank's closed. Tell you what I'll do. I'll put a check in the mail Monday.
Good. We'll be glad to resume service as soon as we receive it.
You mean you're going to let me go without water all weekend?
Sorry, Judge. It's got to be on the line.
But you know my credit's good, Gildy. It was an oversight.
I'm sorry, Judge, but this is a public office, and I propose to discharge it without fear or favor, especially where you're concerned.
All right, Gildy. I won't forget this. The man is drunk with power.
The old goat. I guess that'll teach him a lesson.
Did you mean what you said, Mr. Gildersleeve, about no favors for anyone?
Of course I meant it, absolutely. If they don't pay up, shut off their water. Why?
Because, well, have you looked at that list under the G's?
Under the G's? Under the G's. Oh, my goodness, Gildersleeve.
Great Gildersleeve will be with us again in a few seconds. If your food budget has a way of getting out of line these days, don't despair. If you're resourceful, you'll find a good many foods that save you money, yet meet your requirements of flavor and nourishment, too. One of these economy foods, surely, is wholesome Parquet margarine, the delicious spread for bread made by Kraft. Using Parquet margarine is one economy your family is sure to approve. They'll really go for Parquet's delicate, appetizing flavor when you serve it as a spread for bread or rolls. They'll appreciate the extra flavor Parquet adds to baked and pan-fried foods. Besides, Parquet margarine is an economical source of important food elements. It's a wholesome, nourishing energy food, and every pound contains 9,000 units of important vitamin A. Yes, you can economize wisely when you use Parquet margarine. So why not give it a try in your household? Tomorrow, sure, ask your food dealer for Parquet. P-A-R-K-A-Y. Parquet, the margarine that's made by Kraft. And now let's get back to the Great Gildersleeve. After a light lunch at the Idle Hour tea shop, he returns to the town hall ready to pitch in for a good afternoon's work.
Well, don't you take Saturday afternoons off, Miss Fitz?
Not when there's work to be done.
That's the spirit I like to see. By George, I think you and I are going to get along.
I'm glad you think so.
You know, I was thinking during lunch, Miss Fitz, there's a lot of changes that ought to be made around here.
They seem to have been started already.
What do you mean?
There are some people in your office.
People?
Women.
Women?
2 of them.
2?
They walked right in. They said they knew you.
Well, I can't imagine. I don't know any women, do I?
How about putting the desk over here? Well, how about kitty corner facing the door?
What is this?
Let's try it. Oh, Uncle Mort, help us move the desk, will you? Yes, you're so strong. We could hardly budge it.
Well, wait a minute. What's going on here?
We're going to fix up your office for you, Uncle Mort. We've got it all planned. Yes, it needs a woman's touch, Throckmorton. It really does. Now, you take that portrait there.
Yep.
That's simply got to go. I mean, it's too ridiculous.
It's quiet. It's her father out there. No, my dear, if that portrait goes, I go. I'm not kidding. She'd throw me right out.
Behind the desk, Uncle Mort, so we can see how you look in the corner.
Look, I've got work to do here.
Oh, it won't take a minute, Throckmorton. Come on now. That's a good boy.
Yeah.
Oh, I think he looks wonderful in the corner. Don't you, Marjorie? Yes. Yes, he does. I think we ought to let him stay there. And now climb up on the desk, will you, Throckmorton, and hold this material up beside the window.
Now, really, I've got work.
Oh, now, it won't take but a jiffy. Marjorie and I shopped for this chintz all over town, didn't we, honey? That's right. Oh, I think it's just the smartest thing. Now, climb up. That's right. And hold it up high.
Is this high enough? Yes, Miss Fitz.
Mr. Powers of the Indicator Vindicator to see you.
Yes, oh, my goodness. He probably wants to interview me. Let me get down off of here. Let me down off of here.
Let me give you a hand, Mr. Gildersleeve.
Oh, hello, Mr. Powers.
Doing a little fancy work?
Yeah. Up to Daisy. Mr. Powers, you know Marjorie, my niece.
Yes, indeed, yes.
And Mrs. Ransom.
Well, how do you do, Mrs. Ransom?
How do you do? Oh, I think newspapers are so fascinating, Mr. Powers. I've been intending to subscribe to your publication right along.
Well, always glad to welcome a new subscriber.
Yes.
Oh, but somehow every time the boy comes around, seems like I haven't got my handbag with me.
Oh, that's so.
Well, I'm sorry you have to be going, ladies.
Yes, we really must. Oh, must we?
Miss Fitz will show you out, won't you?
Gladly.
Goodbye, Uncle Mort.
Goodbye. That's a great girl, that niece of yours, Mr. Gildersleeve. She's got a lot of stuff on the ball.
Yeah, she's a fine girl, Marjorie.
Who's the,
she's a friend of the family.
Oh, I see. A friend of the family.
Yes, neighbor of ours.
Neighbor.
Right next door.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll tell you what I dropped around for, Mr. Gildersleeve.
Cigar?
No, thanks.
You don't mind if I...
Oh, of course not. Go ahead. Here's a match.
Thank you. I suppose you want an interview.
Well,
Well, you've heard the old saying, Mr. Powers, a new broom sweeps clean. I propose to get rid of all the dead wood and inefficiency here and run this department without fear or favor for anybody.
That's fine, Mr. Gildersleeve. I'm glad to hear that. But I came over here with something else in mind.
Oh, what's that?
Has it ever occurred to you, Mr. Gildersleeve, that the reservoir of this town offers a beautiful opportunity for sabotage?
Sabotage? By George, I never thought of that.
The state highway goes right by there, you know.
Why, it'd be the easiest thing in the world to heave a dead cat out of a car or something.
You bet it would. Yes, sir. I've been trying to get something done about gardening.
You know, only the other day a man passed me on the street with a very suspicious face. It was about 5:30. I was coming home to dinner, and I don't know. He just looked suspicious, that's all.
Is that so? Well, I finally got Charlie Gates interested.
Charlie Gates?
The chief of police.
Oh.
He's coming out to the reservoir with him this afternoon to look over the ground, and I thought if you weren't too busy, maybe you'd like to come along.
I'll get my hat and be right with you. Miss Fitch, if anybody asks for me, I'll be out at the reservoir.
Very well.
On second thought, if anybody asks, don't tell them. It's a military secret. You see how easy it would be, Chief. Up around the next bend here, the road isn't 20 feet from the reservoir.
I know that. You don't have to tell me that. Just a question of man. I haven't got the force to do it.
Well, maybe we ought to call for volunteers then. You know, like fire watchers.
Yeah, water watchers.
Wait a minute. Stop the car.
Huh?
Why, what's up?
There's somebody down there right now.
What? Well, he's right. 4 or 5 of them, right down to the water.
In the reservoir? Where? I can't see them.
Hey, where are you? Don't move. I got you surrounded.
Don't get him, Chief. I'll stay here and guard the car.
They're running for it. You'll never catch them.
Huh?
Uh-oh. One of them jumped in the water.
Drag him out of there, Chief. Drag him out.
He's got him.
Can you imagine that? Polluting the reservoir. He ought to get 10 years for that.
He certainly should.
I'm going to see that there's a penalty for this if there isn't one already.
Say, it's only a kid.
Huh?
And he's naked. But they're all kids. I bet they've been swimming.
Swimming?
Let go! Let go! You can't do this to me! I don't belong to this reservoir!
Leroy!
Hey, I'll tell this big lug to lay off me.
Get your clothes on, young man.
Uncle Mort, do you think they'll put me in jail? Will they? How will they?
You're in jail, young man. This is the police station. This is what is known as the clink.
I know, but will they lock me up?
I can't say. The chief himself doesn't know yet. He's gone to look up the law. But you deserve to be locked up.
Oh, gee, it wasn't my fault, Unc. They dared me to, the other kids. They said I was scared.
That's no excuse, and you know it.
Yeah, I know it.
People drink that water. Do you realize that? Do you?
Yeah?
Well, why'd you do it then?
Guess I just didn't think.
I guess you didn't. You ought to know better than to go into the water at this time of the year anyway. It's a wonder you didn't freeze.
I did. That's why they dared me.
Well, dare or no dare, young man, this is a very serious offense. It's terrible. I just don't see how you could do such a thing to me. My first day in office, too. What'll people think? My own nephew. What'll the newspaper say?
I'm sorry, Unc. I don't know why I did it. I guess I'm just no good.
Oh, now, Leroy.
They ought to lock me up. They ought to... They can't give me the chair.
No, Leroy, it's not a capital offense. But it's pretty bad. Particularly in wartime.
You mean they might stand me up and...
Now, calm down, young man, calm down.
I'm afraid I'm going to have to hold him for the juvenile court, Mr. Gildersleeve. The penalty for that seems to be $25 fine, 30 days in jail, or both.
Oh!
That's ridiculous. After all, it was nothing but a boyish prank.
Yeah, that's all it was, a boyish prank.
Quiet, Leroy, quiet.
I'm sorry, Mr. Gildersleeve. I don't make the laws here. I just carry them out.
Of course, you're quite right, Gates. Well, when is the juvenile court open?
Well, as a matter of fact, we haven't any juvenile court. Judge Hooker hears the juvenile cases, and he doesn't sit till Monday.
Judge Hooker? Well, yeah, I know him well.
Sure. We know him well.
Quiet, Leroy. Judge Hooker is one of my best friends, Chief. I'll get him right down here. May I use your telephone?
Right there on the desk.
Thank you. Judge Hooker, the old goat. I'll get this thing straightened out right away.
Yeah.
Hello, Judge. This is Gildy, your little child. How you been? How's your golf game? Say, I'll bet you're shooting down those low 70s now, you old son of a gun. Judge, By the way, before I forget, we're in a little trouble down here. I wonder if you could run down for a minute. At the police station. No, it's nothing at all, just a little boyish prank. But, Judge, have a heart. You wouldn't let him hold him here all weekend. No, it's Leroy, not me. Thanks, Judge. Here you go. I object. The court is prejudiced.
Quiet.
Turning off the court's water has nothing whatever to do with this case.
Nothing has been said about turning off the court's water.
No, but I know what you're thinking. And let me say this, Judge. I propose to conduct my office without fear or favor. I ask no favors, and I give none.
Hey, take it easy.
Be quiet. I shall be pleased to have the court's water turned on, again, as soon as the court pays the $11.86 it owes, and not before.
Is the gentleman quite through?
Quite.
I should like to point out in the first place that the court is not on trial here. Young man, you plead guilty, do you not?
Yes, Judge. I mean, Your Honor.
The evidence is quite clear. In this case, as in so many others that come before this court, the fault lies not at the door of this innocent minor, but with those entrusted with his upbringing.
Why, you...
Quiet. It's hardly to be expected that a child of his tender years, brought up in such a deplorable environment, would escape entirely unscathed.
Oh, you old goat! That's libel.
Quiet.
Yes.
You circumstances, young man. I fine you $25 in costs.
What?
However, I will suspend the sentence on the fine.
Well, that's big of you, Judge.
But not on the costs.
Costs? What's that?
My time and inconvenience in coming down here.
What does that amount to?
Exactly $11.86. Take it and turn on my water.
Diary, I'm going to have to do something about Leroy. I've noticed that he's been getting awfully fresh lately. But today he broke the law. I wonder if maybe Judge Hooker was right. Perhaps I haven't spent enough time with the boy. Perhaps I ought to get to know him better. There's only one thing. If I knew him any better, could I stand him at all? Good night, everybody.
Music heard on this program was composed and conducted by Billy Mills. This is Frank Bingman speaking for the Kraft Cheese Company and inviting you to tune in again next week for the further adventures of the Great Gildersleeve.
Chilly autumn weather calls for hearty meals even if you haven't all the time in the world to prepare them. That's why it's mighty handy to have a package or two of Pabstet around. Yes, Pabstet, the delicious golden cheese food of 100 different uses. You see, it's no trick at all to whip up rarebits, soufflés, all kind of cooked cheese dishes if you use Pabstet, because it melts so smoothly and blends right in with other foods. You like making sandwiches and snacks with Pabstet, too, because it slices and spreads so easily. Altogether, you'll find countless ways to use Pabstet for tasty, time-saving meals. Nourishing meals, too, because Pabstet is a reliable source of food energy, milk protein, the milk minerals, calcium and phosphorus, and important vitamin A. So keep Pabstet on hand. Your food dealer has it in the distinctive round, flat package. Yes, tomorrow ask for Pabstet, Pabst-ETT, the delicious golden cheese food of 100 uses. This is the National Broadcasting Company.
This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. What I Saw in America by G.K. Chesterton. Section 30, Chapter 17. The Spirit of America. I suggest that diplomatists of the internationalist school should spend some of their money on staging farces and comedies of cross purposes, founded on the curious and prevalent idea that England and America have the same language. I know, of course, that we both inherit the glorious tongue of Shakespeare, not to mention the tune of the musical glasses, but there have been moments when I thought that if we spoke Greek and they spoke Latin, we might understand each other better. For Greek and Latin are at least fixed, while American, at least, is still very fluid. I do not know the American language, and therefore I do not claim to distinguish between the American language and the American slang. But I know that highly theatrical developments might follow on taking the words of part of the English slang or the English language. I have already given the example of calling a person a regular guy, which in the States is a graceful expression of respect and esteem, but which on the stage, properly handled, might surely lead the way towards a divorce or duel or something lively. Sometimes coincidence merely clinches a mistake, as it so often clinches a misprint. Every proofreader knows that the worst misprint is not that which makes nonsense, but that which makes sense. Not that which is obviously wrong, but that which is hideously right. He who has essayed to write "he got the book" and has found it rendered mysteriously as "he got the boob" is pensively resigned. It is when it is rendered quite lucidly as "he got the boot" that he is moved to a more passionate mood of regret. I have had conversations in which this sort of accident would have wholly misled me, if another accident had not come to the rescue. An American friend of mine was telling me of his adventures as a cinema producer down in the Southwest, where real Indians were procurable. He said that certain Indians were very bad actors. It passed for me as a very ordinary remark on a very ordinary or natural deficiency. It would hardly seem a crushing criticism to say that some wild Arab chieftain was not very good at imitating a farmyard, or that the Grand Lama of Tibet was rather clumsy at making paper boats. But the remark might be natural in a man travelling in a paper boat or touring with an invisible farmyard for his menagerie. As my friend was a cinema producer, I supposed he meant that the Indians were bad cinema actors. But the phrase has really a high and austere moral meaning, which my levity had wholly missed. A bad actor means a man whose actions are bad or morally reprehensible. So that I might have embraced the Red Indian who was dripping with gore or covered with atrocious crimes, imagining there was nothing the matter with him beyond a mistaken choice of the theatrical profession. Surely there are here the elements of a play, not to mention a cinema play. Surely a New England village maiden might find herself among the wigwams in the power of the formidable and fiendish little blue bison, merely through her mistaken sympathy with his financial failure as a film star. The notion gives me glimpses of all sorts of dissolving views of primeval forests and flamboyant theatres. But this impulse of irrelevant theatrical production must be curbed. There is one example, however, of this complication of language, actually used in contrary senses, about which the same figure can be used to illustrate a more serious fact. Suppose that in such an international interlude an English girl and an American girl are talking about the fiancé of the former, who is coming to call. The English girl will be haughty and aristocratic on the stage. The American girl will of course have short hair and skirts and will be cynical, Americans being more completely free from cynicism than any people in the world. It is the great glory of Americans that they are not cynical. For that matter, English aristocrats are hardly ever haughty. They understand the game much better than that. But on the stage, anyhow, the American girl may say, referring to her friend's fiancé, with a cynical wave of the cigarette, "I suppose he's bound to come and see you." And at this the blue blood of the Vere de Vere will boil over. The English lady will be deeply wounded and insulted at the suggestion that her lover only comes to see her because he is forced to do so. A staggering stage quarrel will then ensue, and things will go from bad to worse, until the arrival of an interpreter who can talk both English and American. He stands between the two ladies, waving two pocket dictionaries, and explains the error on which the quarrel turns. It is very simple, like the seed of all tragedies. In English, "he is bound to come and see you" means that he is obliged or constrained to come and see you. In America, it does not. In America, it means that he is bent on coming to see you, that he is irrevocably resolved to do so, and will surmount any obstacle to do it. The two young ladies will then embrace as the curtain falls. Now, when I was lecturing in America, I was often told in a radiant and congratulatory manner that such and such a person was bound to come and hear me lecture. It seemed a very cruel form of conscription, and I could not understand what authority could have made it compulsory. In the course of discovering my error, however, I thought I began to understand certain American ideas and instincts that lie behind this American idiom. For as I have urged before, and shall often urge again, the road to international friendship is through really understanding jokes. It is, in a sense, through taking jokes seriously. It is quite legitimate to laugh at a man who walks down the street in 3 white hats and green dressing gown because he is unfamiliar. But, after all, the man has some reason for what he does, and until we know the reason we do not understand the story, or even understand the joke. So the outlander will always seem outlandish in costume or custom. But serious relations depend on our getting beyond the fact of difference to the things wherein it differs. A good symbolical figure for all this may be found among the people who say, perhaps with a self-revealing simplicity, that they are bound to go to a lecture. If I were asked for a single symbolic figure summing up the whole of what seems eccentric and interesting about America to an Englishman, I should be satisfied to select that one lady who complained of Mr. Asquith's lecture and wanted her money back. I do not mean that she was typically American in complaining. Far from it. I, for one, have a great and guilty knowledge of all that amiable American audiences will endure without complaint. I do not mean that she was typically American in wanting her money. Quite the contrary. That sort of American spends money rather than hoards it. And when we convict them of vulgarity, we acquit them of avarice. Where she was typically American, summing up a truth individual and indescribable in any other way, is that she used these words: "I've risen from a sick bed to come and hear her, and I want my money back." The element in that which really amuses an Englishman is precisely the element which, properly analysed, ought to make him admire an American. But my point is that only by going through the amusement can he reach the admiration. The amusement is the vision of a tragic sacrifice for what is avowedly a rather trivial object. Mrs. Asquith is a candid lady of considerable humour, and I feel sure she does not regard the experience of hearing her read her diary as an ecstasy for which the sick should thus suffer martyrdom. She also is English, and had no other claim but to amuse Americans, and possibly to be amused by them. This being so, it is rather as if somebody said, "I have risked my life in fire and pestilence to find my way to the music hall," or "I have fasted 40 days in the wilderness, sustained by the hope of seeing Totty Toddles do her new dance." And there is something rather more subtle involved here. There is something in an Englishman which would make him feel faintly ashamed of saying that he had fasted to hear Totty Toddles, or risen from a sick bed to hear Mrs. Asquith. He would feel that it was undignified to confess that he had wanted mere amusement so much, and perhaps that he had wanted anything so much. He would not like, so to speak, to be seen rushing down the street after Totty Toddles, or after Mrs. Asquith, or perhaps after anybody. But there is something in it distinct from mere embarrassment and admitting enthusiasm. He might admit the enthusiasm if the object seemed to justify it. He might perfectly well be serious about a serious thing. But he cannot understand a person being proud of serious sacrifices for what is not a serious thing. He does not like to admit that a little thing can excite him, that he can lose his breath in running, or lose his balance in reaching, after something that might be called silly. Now that is where the American is fundamentally different. To him the enthusiasm itself is meritorious. To him the excitement itself is dignified. He counts it a part of his manhood to fast or fight or rise from a bed of sickness for something, or possibly for anything. His ideal is not to be a lock that only a worthy key can open, but a live wire that anything can touch and anybody can use. In a word, there is a difference in the very definition of virility and therefore of virtue. A live wire is not only active, it is also sensitive. Thus sensibility becomes actually a part of virility. Something more is involved than the vulgar simplification of the American as the irresistible force and the Englishman as the immovable post. As a fact, those who speak of such things nowadays generally mean by something irresistible something simply immovable, or at least something unalterable, motionless even in motion, like a cannon ball, for a cannon ball is as dead as a cannon. Prussian militarism was praised in that way until it met a French force of about half its size on the banks of the Marne. But that is not what an American means by energy. That sort of Prussian energy is only monotony without repose. American energy is not a soulless machine, for it is the whole point that he puts his soul into it. It is a very small box for so big a thing, but it is not an empty box. But the point is that he is not only proud of his energy, he is proud of his excitement. He is not ashamed of his emotion, of the fire, or even the tear in his manly eye, when he tells you that the great wheel of his machine breaks 4 billion butterflies an hour. That is the point about American sport, that it is not the least sportive. It is because it is not very sportive that we sometimes say it is not very sporting. It has the vices of a religion. It has all the paradox of original sin in the service of aboriginal faith. It is sometimes untruthful because it is sincere. It is sometimes treacherous because it is loyal. Men lie and cheat for it as they lied for their lords in a feudal conspiracy, or cheated for their chieftains in a Highland feud. We may say that the vassal readily committed treason, but it is equally true that he readily endured torture. So does the American athlete endure torture. Not only the self-sacrifice, but the solemnity of the American athlete is like that of the American Indian. The athletes in the States have the attitude of the athletes among the Spartans, the great historical nation without a sense of humour. They suffer an ascetic regime, not to be matched in any monasticism, and hardly in any militarism. If any tradition of these things remains in a saner age, they will probably be remembered as a mysterious religious order of fakirs or dancing dervishes, who shaved their heads and fasted in honour of Hercules or Castor and Pollux. And that is really the spiritual atmosphere, though the gods have vanished, and the religion is subconscious and therefore irrational. For the problem of the modern world is that it has continued to be religious when it has ceased to be rational. Americans really would starve to win a cocoa-nut shy. They would fast or bleed to win a race of paper boats on a pond. They would rise from a sick bed to listen to Mrs. Asquith. But it is the real reason that interests me here. It is certainly not that Americans are so stupid as not to know that coconuts are only coconuts, and that paper boats only made of paper. Americans are, on an average, rather more intelligent than Englishmen, and they are well aware that Hercules is a myth, and that Mrs. Asquith is something of a mythologist. It is not that they do not know that the object is small in itself. It is that they do really believe that the enthusiasm is great in itself. They admire people for being impressionable. They admire people for being excited. An American so struggling for some disproportionate trifle, like one of my lectures, really feels in a mystical way that he is right, because it is his whole morality to be keen. So long as he wants something very much, whatever it is, he feels he has his conscience behind him, and the common sentiment of society behind him, and God and the whole universe behind him. Wedged on one leg in a hot crowd at a trivial lecture, he has self-respect. His dignity is at rest. This is what he means when he says he is bound to come to the lecture. Now, the Englishman is fond of occasional larks, but these things are not larks, nor are they occasional. It is the essential of the Englishman's lark that he should think it a lark, that he should laugh at it even when he does it. Being English myself, I like it, but being English myself, I know it is connected with weakness as well as merits. In its irony there is condescension, and therefore embarrassment. This patronage is allied to the patron, and the patron is allied to the aristocratic tradition of society. The larks are a variant of laziness because of leisure, and the leisure is a variant of the security and even supremacy of the gentleman. When an undergraduate at Oxford smashes 100 windows, he is well aware that the incident is merely a trifle. He can be trusted to explain to his parents and guardians that it was merely a trifle. He does not say, even in the American sense, that he was bound to smash the windows. He does not say that he had risen from a sick bed to smash the windows. He does not especially think he has risen at all. He knows he has descended, though with delight, like one diving or sliding down the banisters, to something flat and farcical and full of the English taste for the bathos. He has collapsed into something entirely commonplace, though the owners of the windows may possibly not think so. This rather indescribable element runs through 100 English things, as in the love of bathos shown even in the sound of proper names, so that even the yearning lover in a lyric yearns for somebody named Sally rather than Salome, and for a place called Wapping rather than a place called Westermain. Even in the relapse into rowdiness there is a sort of relapse into comfort. There is also what is so large a part of comfort, carelessness. The undergraduate breaks windows because he does not care about windows, not because he does care about more fresh air, like a hygienist, or about more light, like a German poet. Still less does he heroically smash 100 windows because they come between him and the voice of Mrs. Asquith. But least of all does he do it because he seriously prides himself on the energy apart from its aim, and on the will power that carries it through. He is not bound to smash the windows even in the sense of being bent upon it. He is not bound at all, but rather relaxed, and his violence is not only a relaxation but a laxity. Finally, this is shown in the fact that he only smashes windows when he is in a mood to smash windows, when some fortunate conjunction of stars and all the tints and nuances of nature whisper to him that it would be well to smash windows. But the American is always ready at any moment to waste his energies on the wider and more suicidal course of going to lectures. And this is because to him such excitement is not a mood but a moral ideal. As I note in another connection, much of the English mystery would be clear to Americans if they understood the word mood. Englishmen are very moody, especially when they smash windows. But I doubt if many Americans understand exactly what we mean by the mood, especially the passive mood. It is only by trying to get some notion of all this that an Englishman can enjoy the final crown and fruit of all international friendship, which is really liking an American to be American. If we only think that parts of him are excellent because parts of him are English, it would be far more sensible to stop at home and possibly enjoy the society of a whole complete Englishman. But anybody who does understand this can take the same pleasure in an American being American that he does in a thunderbolt being swift and a barometer being sensitive. He can see that a vivid sensibility and vigilance really radiate outwards through all the ramifications of machinery and even materialism. You can see that the American uses his great practical powers upon very small provocation. But he can also see that there is a kind of sense of honour, like that of a duellist, in his readiness to be provoked. Indeed, there is some parallel between the American man of action, however vulgar his aims, and the old feudal idea of the gentleman with a sword at his side. The gentleman may have been proud of being strong or sturdy. He may too often have been proud of being thick-headed, but he was not proud of being thick-skinned. On the contrary, he was proud of being thin-skinned. He was also seriously thought that sensitiveness was a part of masculinity. It may also be very absurd to read of two Irish gentlemen trying to kill each other for trifles, or of two Irish American millionaires trying to ruin each other for trash. But the very pettiness of the pretext, and even the purpose, illustrates the same conception, which may be called the virtue of excitability. And it is really this, and not any rubbish about iron will-power and masterful mentality, that redeems with romance their clockwork cosmos in its industrial ideals. Being a live wire does not mean that the nerves should be like wires, but rather that the very wires should be like nerves. Another approximation to the truth would be to say that an American is really not ashamed of curiosity. It is not so simple as it looks. Men will carry off curiosity with various kinds of laughter and bravado, just as they will carry off drunkenness or bankruptcy. But very few people are really proud of lying on a doorstep, and very few people are really proud of longing to look through a keyhole. I do not speak of looking through it, which involves questions of honour and self-control. But few people feel that even the desire is dignified. Now I fancy the American, at least by comparison with the Englishman, does feel that his curiosity is consistent with his dignity, because dignity is consistent with vivacity. He feels it is not merely the curiosity of Paul Pry, but the curiosity of Christopher Columbus. He is not a spy, but an explorer, and he feels his greatness rather grow with his refusal to turn back, as a traveller might feel taller and taller as he neared the source of the Nile or the North-West Passage. Many an Englishman has had that feeling about discoveries in dark continents, but he does not often have it about discoveries in daily life. The one type does believe in the indignity, and the other in the dignity of the detective. It has nothing to do with ethics in the mere external sense. It involves no particular comparison in practical morals and manners. It is something in the whole poise and posture of the self, of the way a man carries himself. For men are not only affected by what they are, but still more, when they are fools, by what they think they are, and when they are wise, by what they wish to be. There are truths that have almost become untrue by becoming untruthful. There are statements so often stale and insincere that one hesitates to use them, even when they stand for something more subtle. This point about curiosity is not the conventional complaint against the American interviewer. It is not the ordinary joke against the American child. And in the same way I feel a danger of it being identified with the cant about a young nation, if I say that it has some of the attractions, not of American childhood, but of real childhood. There is some truth in the tradition that the children of wealthy Americans tend to be too precocious and luxurious. But there is a sense in which we can really say that if the children are like adults, the adults are like children. And that sense is in the very best sense of childhood. It is something which the modern world does not understand. It is something that modern Americans do not understand, even when they possess it. But I think they do possess it. The devil can quote Scripture for his purpose, and the text of Scripture which he now most commonly quotes is, "The kingdom of heaven is within you." That text has been the stay and support of more Pharisees and prigs and self-righteous spiritual bullies than all the dogmas in creation. It has served to identify self-satisfaction with the peace that passes all understanding. And the text to be quoted in answer to it is that which declares that no man can receive the kingdom except as a little child. What we are to have inside is the childlike spirit. But the childlike spirit is not entirely concerned about what is inside. It is the first mark of possessing it that one is interested in what is outside. The most childlike thing about a child is his curiosity and his appetite and his power of wonder at the world. We might almost say that the whole advantage of having the kingdom within is that we look for it somewhere else. The end of section 30, chapter 17.
Autolite and its 98,000 dealers bring you Mr. Jack Benny in tonight's presentation of Suspense. Tonight, Autolite, following a popular trend, anticipates the strange disappearance of experimental rocket ship Y-272B. The time, the year 2053. The place, the planet Mars. The star, Mr. Jack Benny. Say, Hap, that was quite a speech you made last night. You were as dynamic as an Autolite Stay-Full battery.
Oh, that's flattery, Harlow.
And what a battery it is, Hap. The Autolite Stay-Full is the power-packed pepster that needs water only 3 times a year in normal car use.
I really don't deserve such praise, Harlow.
Why not? That's the battery with the fiberglass retaining mats protecting every positive plate to reduce shedding and flaking and give the Autolite Stay-Full longer life, as proved by tests conducted according to accepted life cycle standards.
That was really good, eh, Harlow?
Oh, no one could do any better than to visit his nearest Autolite battery dealer, who services all makes of batteries. To quickly locate him, just call Western Union by number...
and ask for operator 25. I'll tell you the name of your nearest Autolite battery dealer, where you can get an Autolite Stay-Full.
The battery that needs water only 3 times a year in normal car use. And remember, from bumper to tail light, you're always right with Autolite. And now, Autolite presents transcribed Plan X, starring Mr. Jack Benny, hoping once again to keep you in suspense.
The card. Do you have the card yet?
One more run through the machine.
Touareg, when do you think the Earth rocket is arriving?
Tomorrow. But if the Grand Council wanted the card before now, they should have asked me before now.
Is that it? Let me see it.
Here.
13756. Zeno. Assembly line worker. Atomic escalator factory. Touareg, this is the man for the job?
He has the specifications called for.
An assembly line worker. That's incredible. Incredible.
Yes? Yes? Right away. You may go in now, Zeno. The Grand Council is ready for you.
One 3756 called Zeno. Come forward.
Yes, sir.
Zeno, the Grand Council of Mars has a mission for you to perform.
Me? A mission?
You have been selected because of the qualities shown on your work and identity card, Form 42-A. Set habit patterns, attention to detail, no strong emotional or biological drives, and complete suppression of imagination.
Well, I always pride myself
Do not
that
speak unless questioned, Zeno. The Grand Council has other important matters of state.
Of course, of course.
You have heard the telephone broadcast that an armed rocket from the planet Earth is approaching Mars.
Oh, I did hear something about it, yes.
Their course has been plotted as bringing them to a landing on the plain outside the city at 10:14 tomorrow morning.
10:14. You know, I wouldn't mind seeing that.
You will see it, Citizen Zeno.
Me?
You.
Well, I'd certainly like to, but I'm due in the atomic escalator factory at 8. I'm on stair treads, you know. And
we've arranged a leave from your job.
Leave? Well, I'm not arguing with the Grand Council, but I've got a pretty important job there, and...
13756, you've been selected to meet and deal with the Earth rocket.
Me?
You will put Plan X into operation.
Plan X?
Citizen Zeno, every Martian for the last 50 years has been thoroughly grounded in Plan X, if and when a rocket should come from the Earth.
Oh, Plan X. Oh, you see, I thought you said Plan X. Of course.
Then you understand and accept the responsibility.
Oh, anything to help out.
Those assisting you on the mission will be in contact with you.
Good.
Have the other council members any questions?
I don't believe so.
13756 called Zeno. You are now officially operating under the provisions of Plan X.
Well, thank you. I took the aerial transmission belt directly home. Let them get along without me at the escalator factory if they could. Besides, it was almost quitting time. I went to bed early that night. Tomorrow was going to be a big day. Plan X. Out of the whole population of Mars, I was picked to carry out Plan X. Oh, I'll admit I had my criticisms of the Grand Council in the past, but this restored my confidence in them. Yes, sir. They couldn't have picked a better Martian. I think I'll have a second cup of Ostrich, Mother.
Zeno, you haven't time. You'll be late for the factory as it is.
As I told you, Mother, I'm on leave. Orders of the Grand Council.
Oh, yes, of course, Plan X. But will the Grand Council care if you don't get your job back?
There won't be any trouble. They couldn't replace me in stair treads, and they know it. Pass the Gorot, will you, Mother?
Here. But it's fattening, Zeno.
Well, I got a hard task coming up, Mother. I owe it to myself.
And you will be careful, Zeno.
Oh, Mother, if I've told you once, I've told you 1,000 times. It's just an invasion rocket from that stupid planet Earth. So will you stop worrying?
You're just like your father was, Zeno. Too brave for your own good.
I am? Well, it's nothing, really. I took my time going over to the field where the Earth rocket was to land. I got there at 10, with not another soul around. Another few minutes, and I had my pocket radar screen working. Yep, the rocket was coming in, right on time. Then I could hear it out in space, and soon after that I could see it, bearing our first visitors from Earth. Gee, I was thinking they must be a brave crew. I almost felt sorry for them. It wasn't a bad landing. Not the greatest, but not bad. After another 10 minutes, a port in the side of the rocket started to swing open, and I walked over. If I do say it myself, I made quite an impression.
Commander, look. Great Scott, what is it? Commander, I think we've met our first Martian.
All right, keep back, everybody. Dr. Fielding and I will deal with it. Him, whatever it is. Hand me the Martian kit, Parker.
All ready, sir?
Come on, Fielding. We'll be ready for anything.
Right, Commander. Incredible. Absolutely incredible.
I'll try to talk to him. We, Earth people, we friends. Friends? We come from out there. Oh, blasted Fielding. I feel like a fool.
Let me try, Commander. We bring you presents. Here, we bring you beads, cloths of many colors. Take them.
You wouldn't have something a little more conservative?
Fielding. He speaks Esperanto.
Incredible. Incredible.
Gentlemen, welcome to Mars.
It's almost as if he was expecting us.
Oh, yes, for some days now. Ever since you left Earth, as a matter of fact.
You hear that, Fielding?
Commander, we may very well be in the presence of a superior race.
Well, thank you.
You say you expected us? Everyone expected us?
Oh, certainly.
But you're here alone.
Yes. Well, unfortunately, all other adult Martians are, shall we say, unavailable.
For how long?
Not wishing to pry, but how long are you staying?
Well, they've taken to the hills, have they? No need to be afraid of us. No need at all.
There's no one in your city over there?
Mainly unavailable. But I'll be glad to show you around. Martian hospitality, you know.
Amazing. Can we go right away, Commander? I'll get Connie.
You can call her, Fielding, but we don't want to blunder into a trap. All right, men. All in. Parker, take 3 men and stay here for rocket guard.
Yes, sir.
Ready, Fielding?
All set, Commander. Connie, I want you to meet our first Martian.
Dr. Fielding, I don't believe it.
Miss Morrison, this is,
13756. Called Zeno.
Miss Morrison, this is Zeno.
How do you do?
Well, how do you do?
Incredible. But he's almost handsome in a strange way. And he speaks our language.
Maybe a trick of some kind. Expedition force, on to...
It's a little difficult to pronounce.
On to the city!
We marched into the city, which, of course, appeared quite deserted. Plan X. I showed them a few of the sights, the canals, the Og factory, and the hall of the Grand Council. I was walking alongside of Connie, Miss Morrison, who was most unlike the women of Mars. I caught myself showing off, riding the aerial transmission belt with one hand. Finally, I took them all to the art museum.
Oh, Commander, this place, this civilization, it's fantastic, fantastic.
Look at this sculpture, Dr. Fielding, the line, the detail. I've never seen anything so beautiful.
It's nothing, really.
Zeno, you don't mean that you...
Well, no. You see, I work at an atomic escalator factory. I'm in stair treads.
Everybody, over here. Look at this.
Oh, what is it?
Isn't that what... Zeno, is this what I think it is?
I'll have to read the nameplate. Oh, yes, a flying saucer. From 1952, your calendar. 100 years old.
1952, the year of the flying saucers. Then they did come from Mars.
Oh, yes.
But none of them ever landed on Earth. Why?
It just didn't seem worthwhile. Nothing personal, of course.
I just can't get over this planet. It's so different from anything we imagined.
Now, here's something you might be interested in. Right over here.
What? Looks like a weapon of some kind.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, you see, it's a paralyzer ray. It's 300 years old.
But why do you have it in the museum?
You don't mean that weapons like this are 300 years obsolete?
Well, you might say that, yes. You see, no adult Martian has carried a weapon for hundreds of years.
Well, why not?
Why should we?
But to defend yourself.
Well, we just have no aggressive impulses, that's all.
Well, if someone struck you, wouldn't you strike back?
I couldn't. But it doesn't matter. No one could strike me.
No Martian, that is.
Yeah. We've never had any trouble.
Zeno, you're in the diplomatic service?
The escalator game.
Yet you were delegated to meet us.
Yes, by the Grand Council. You see, we stopped having diplomats handle our important missions years ago. Again, nothing personal, of course.
I see. But you are empowered to deal with us.
Deal with you? I certainly am.
Good. Now, it seems logical to me that we should work out a mutual defense pact. Not right now, of course.
Mr. Zeno! Mr. Zeno!
Who's that?
We look like children.
We have to see him, Mr. Zeno.
Just some little friends of mine.
Oh, they're darling.
What's the problem, Ormy?
something. And we're all out of uranium. We need some right away, and...
Zeno, does he mean real uranium?
Oh, of course, Dr. Fielding. Oh, it won't hurt them a bit.
We have to have it right away, Mr. Zeno. We just have to have it.
The city was deserted. Where did these children come from?
Oh, you know how it is with kids when they get to playing.
You'll get the uranium for us, won't you, Mr. Zeno? Will you?
Fascinating. What are they playing, Zeno?
Yes. What's the game?
I don't think you've heard of it, Commander. It's called Plan X.
Autolite is bringing you Mr. Jack Benny in Plan X. Tonight's presentation in radio's outstanding theater of thrills, Suspense.
Say, Harlow, do you like to make speeches?
Sure, Hap, especially about the Autolite Stay Full battery. Friends, Romans, motorists, lend me your ears while I praise the greatest of the great, the incomparable Autolite Stay Full. The battery that needs water only 3 times a year in normal car use. The battery that gives longer life as proved by tests conducted according to accepted life cycle standards. The famous Autolite Stay Full has over 3 times the liquid reserve of ordinary batteries. And because every positive plate is protected by fiberglass retaining mats to reduce shedding and flaking, the Autolite Stay Full just naturally gives longer life than ordinary batteries.
And where can one get this glorious battery?
From your nearest Autolite battery dealer who services all makes of batteries. To quickly locate him, just phone Western Union and ask for operator 25.
And I'll tell you where you can get an Autolite Stay Full, the battery that needs water only 3 times a year in normal car use.
And remember, from bumper to tail light, you're always right with Autolite.
And now, Autolite brings back to our Hollywood soundstage Mr. Jack Benny in Elliot Lewis's production of Plan X, a tale well calculated to keep you in suspense.
For the next week, I showed the Earth expedition around the city, signed a few treaties, and had several long conversations with Miss Morrison. Well, not too long, but I felt we were building a solid friendship. It was too bad it was coming to an end.
You're not going out again this evening, Zeno?
Mother, so I've been out 2 evenings in a row. Doesn't have to be fatal, you know.
This is the time of year you always get that chest cold.
Oh, chest cold, chest cold. Anyway, Mother, I have to go over to the rocket.
Don't they plan to go back to Earth tomorrow?
They plan to, yes. Miss Morrison promised to take a little farewell walk with me this evening.
Don't let her keep you out in the moonlight too long, Zeno.
Mother, why, that's the most ridiculous thing.
You just don't know how attractive you are.
Now, Mother, Miss Morrison and I are merely friends. And to think of anything beyond that is just...
Mr. Zeno! Mr. Zeno! We're almost finished the game, Mr. Zeno.
Good. All finished, Army?
Just about. It's tomorrow morning at 8:45, isn't it?
8:45. Anything else you need, Army? I mean, any more uranium?
No, I just wanted to make sure it was 8:45. Well, see you in the morning, Mr. Zeno. Goodbye, Mr. Zeno.
See you in the morning, Army.
Such a cute little fellow, Zeno. And smart.
Is he? Mother, you have no idea. The Earth expedition was camped beside their rocket, getting ready for takeoff the next day. Connie, Miss Morrison, waved when she saw me coming. I waved back, and then she smiled at me, and I smiled back. It was a beautiful evening. We walked out over the plain, Connie and I, and then we sat down quite close. Connie lit a cigarette, and I opened up a package of Gurkhag.
Zeno.
Yes, Connie. Miss Morrison.
Connie. How is it you're not married, Zeno? Don't Martians believe in it?
Oh, definitely. But there's Mother and...
And what?
Connie, you don't find me a little bit strange?
You mean because you're a Martian?
Not exactly. You see, even to Martian girls, I'm a little bit strange.
I find you very attractive, Zeno.
Really?
You're from a superior race?
Well...
The commander may not see it, but Dr. Fielding does, and I do. Your civilization, your culture, and you.
Actually,
What are the other Martians like? You know, I seem to feel there are people all around watching, waiting, and yet we've seen only you.
And the children, of course.
Yes, and the children. They've been playing around the rocket all day.
Yes.
Zeno, what'll happen to this planet, this beautiful planet, when the next Earth rocket comes? And the next one?
Connie.
I'd almost like to stay here. Or I wish we'd never come. None of us.
Connie, there's something I...
What, Zeno? What is it?
It's just that it's getting cold. Maybe we better go back. I walked with Connie back to the rocket, and then I went home. There was a message on the autophonopad. The Grand Council wanted to see me at once. You sent for me, gentlemen?
13756 called Zeno. You are nearing the completion of Plan X.
I hope my work has been satisfactory.
You were selected for certain qualifications, Zeno. Set habit patterns, attention to detail, no strong emotional drives.
I remember, yes.
You have assumed a responsibility based on those qualifications.
I suppose you might put it that way.
Are you still prepared to discharge that responsibility?
Well, I think you might as well know that it's been my criticism in the past, as well as that of a lot of other taxpayers, that the Grand Council interferes entirely too much in the private lives of, well, what I mean to say...
Are you prepared to discharge your responsibility?
But about Connie, I mean, Miss Morrison, isn't there some way...
You know that there is not.
Well, I suppose not, no.
Plan X will then be completed.
I assure the Grand Council, at 8:45 tomorrow morning, Plan X will be completed. I didn't sleep well that night, and Mother was worried when I hadn't any appetite in the morning. She thought it was the start of one of my chest colds. Purposely, I didn't go out to the rocket until almost 8:40. They were blasting the motors, getting ready to take off.
Zeno, I thought you weren't coming.
I overslept, Connie. That is, I didn't really oversleep, but...
The children have been here for an hour.
Just about finished playing, Mr. Zeno.
Oh, good, Army. Did you win the game? Plan X?
I think so. We'll know in a minute, Mr. Zeno.
They're so intense. Are the children on Mars always that way, Zeno?
Well, not always, no.
Ah, come to see us off, did you, Zeno? Good boy. We counted on you.
Well, thank you.
Come over here, Fielding.
Yes, Commander.
Connie, Fielding, Zeno here has been so helpful to us that I've come to a decision.
That's very nice of you, but I'm pretty well stocked up on beads right now.
A different kind of a present. Zeno, I've decided to invite you to come with us to Earth.
To Earth?
How about it, Zeno? We're taking off in 16 minutes at 9 o'clock. How about it?
Well, it's not that I don't appreciate your thinking of me, but Mother would worry and...
You see, we need you, Zeno.
That's not true.
Well, I'm afraid it is. You see, I think Zeno is a much more important man than a worker in an elevator factory.
Escalator. I'm in stair trains.
And if we have Zeno along the next time we come back to Mars, we'd be much less likely to run into, well, an ambush.
I'm afraid he's right, Connie.
He's not right.
How about it, Zeno?
Thanks, but no.
Commander, those kids, they've got some sort of a ray gun set up.
Fielding. Is it real, Fielding?
Wait, it looks like it, Commander.
Get Zeno over in front of us, quick. Now they can't shoot without hitting him. Get your gun out, Parker.
You mean the kids, Commander?
If we have to, yes. Tell them not to fire on us, Zeno.
I'm sorry, Connie. Really sorry.
Oh, it's all right, Zeno. Do what you have to do.
Shall we shoot, Mr. Zeno?
Have your gun ready, Parker.
It wouldn't do any good, Commander. All right, Army. Plan X.
Did you fire, Parker?
Me, sir? Fire a gun? Why, I couldn't. I couldn't do a thing like that.
No, of course you couldn't. I don't know what made me ask.
The rocket, its motors have stopped. Its motors have stopped, Commander.
Well, we aren't going anywhere, are we?
Someone said something about going back to Earth.
Back to Earth?
Oh, no. Of course not. Of course not.
Everybody all right?
What happened, Commander? What happened?
Nothing, really. It's just that Ormy and his little friends built a maturity ray. It takes people who are, shall we say, less advanced and increases their IQ by several thousand years.
It's amazing.
Child's play.
Zeno, do you mean to say...
Commander, Dr. Fielding, Parker, Connie, permit me to congratulate you as fellow Martians.
Utterly amazing.
Connie.
Look, here come the Martians.
Our fellow Martians, thousands of them. They're coming to welcome us.
Connie.
Oh, look at them. Oh, they look so handsome, so intelligent, so...
Connie.
Yeah, excuse me, Zeno. I'll be back, Commander. I have to go to them. I'll be back.
Well, she did like me for a while. Before Plan X. But she did like me. Even just for a while. That's something, isn't it?
Suspense, presented by Autolite. Tonight's star, Mr. Jack Benny. This is Harlow Wilcox again, speaking for Autolite, world's largest independent manufacturer of automotive electrical equipment. Autolite is proud to serve the greatest names in the industry. That's why, during the early months of 1953, as we did last year, the Autolite family will join in saluting the leading car manufacturers who install Autolite products as original equipment. Our Autolite family is a worldwide family and numbers among its members some 30,000 men and women in Autolite plants in the United States, Canada, and many foreign countries, and the 18,000 people who have invested a portion of their savings in Autolite, as well as thousands of Autolite distributors and dealers, and the many leading manufacturers who use Autolite products as original equipment. Our Autolite family will salute the Dodge division of Chrysler Corporation on the next Autolite Suspense program on television. If you live in a television area, check the day and time of Suspense so that you'll be sure to see this program. Next week, the dramatic report of a man's desperate race for freedom. A true story with names and places changed in order to protect the lives of the principals. The story is called The Man Who Cried Wolf. Our star, Mr. Jeff Chandler. That's next week on Suspense. Suspense is transcribed and directed by Elliott Lewis, with music composed by Lucian Morowick and conducted by Lud Gluskin. Plan X was written for Suspense by Richard Powell. Featured in tonight's cast were Mary Jane Croft, Norma Varden, John McIntyre, Truda Marson, Howard McNear, William Conrad, Jack Crucian, Joseph Kearns, and Stuffy Singer. The Jack Benny Show may be heard every Sunday on the CBS Radio Network. And remember next week, Mr. Jeff Chandler in The Man Who Cried Wolf. The 1953 March of Dimes has nearly passed by. If you haven't given your dime or dollar to help in the crusade against polio, why not do it now? Send your contribution to your local March of Dimes headquarters. This is the CBS Radio Network.
This is Father Bob Warren of the Franciscan Friars of the Atonement. Thank you for listening to this rebroadcast of the Ave Maria Hour radio show. The Friars' popular Ave Maria Hour was first brought to the radio airwaves in 1939, recorded in New York City and on the mountainside grounds at Graymoor, a home in Garrison, New York. These timeless classic stories of the Bible and the lives of the saints came to life each week through dramatic reenactment by professional actors and actresses. You know, friends, Christ once said, "Do not hide your treasure under a bushel." In saying this, he meant share your gifts, share your talents. The Friars of the Atonement feel the message in these broadcasts remains as powerful and timely as when they were originally aired, and we are so happy to be able to share them with you today. To learn more about the missions and ministries of the Friars of the Atonement, I invite you to visit our website, www.atonementfriars.org. In the meantime, sit back and enjoy this rebroadcast of the Ave Maria Hour.
The story of St. Francis, the beloved little poor man of Assisi. More than 7 centuries ago, Francis Bernardoni walked about the Italian countryside, a man who had made himself poor for the love of Christ, yet of his spiritual riches gave to all he met. Today there is not a country in the world where his name is not known, and there are few hearts the world over so hard that they have not responded to the spell of his unique personality. Saint of the whole world, truly, is Francis of Assisi.
Our story begins on a moonlit evening in the year 1202 in the old city of Assisi. Through its narrow, curving streets, in and out of the black shadows of the high stone walls, a gay procession is winding.
King of love, give us your blessing.
1,000 blessings, and welcome, my faithful subjects. But what need of them have you? The fair Maria is already beside you.
No one besides me, great monarch. Give me 1,000 blessings. Even better, I shall take one of the maids from your court.
Who entices the lady from my court is guilty of high treason. Away, base knave, and the head shall roll to the ground.
You ask me what's wrong with the country? I'll tell you. When I was young, we didn't go through the public streets howling like a pack of wolves. Who's that young man with all those girls around him?
He's Francis, the son of Pietro Bernardoni, the merchant. He's just back from Perugia, where he was a prisoner of war. He's a wild youth, but he'll quiet down once he's married and has a family.
I'll say what you will, but I tell you the situation is serious. Faith and decency are dying all over the country. The youth of our best families think nothing but revelry and fine clothes. Crime and bloodshed are the order of the day.
Well, we can do nothing about it, and I at least must be getting home. My wife will be wondering what has become of me.
Well, I'll go with you as far as the corner. I have to call on Antonio, the wine merchant. If his shop is still open, I must... Be careful. There's a man lurking there in the shadow of the wall. Watch your purse.
He's not a robber. It's young Francis. I wonder if he's ill.
Well, if he's ill, it's no concern of mine. Here come the others looking for him.
Francis! Where are you? You're spoiling all the fun. I see him. Hey, Francis. What's wrong? Francis. What's the matter, man? Can't you speak?
Nothing. Nothing is the matter. I'm only thinking.
Thinking? That's a rare occupation when everyone else is making merry.
The poor fellow must be in love.
The king of love has fallen victim to his own spell.
Well, who is she, Francis?
Yes, tell us her name.
Is she beautiful?
Most important of all, is she rich?
My friend, she is. Someone richer and more beautiful than any of you can imagine.
And now the moon has risen to mid-heaven. The revelers have gone to their homes, and good citizens can sleep again. But in the deserted streets, Francis Bernardoni stands long before the door of his father's house, gazing up at the bright moonlit sky. I told them she was richer, more beautiful than any they could imagine. Poverty. My Lady Poverty. Yes, truly. To yield heart and soul to her in perfect love would be the greatest romance of all. Have I courage for that? I who love beauty and laughter, fine clothes, good food. Why do you seek me, O Christ, when there are better, braver souls whom you might call to your service? Almost I could beg you let me remain content as other men with the things of the world. Oh, but I do not beg it, my Lord. No, no. Continue to speak to my heart, dear Master. Make your will known to me. But give me courage when you do, for I am very much afraid. Francis made a pilgrimage to Rome and returned, to all appearances, still a wealthy young worldling. One day, as he was riding past the great leper hospital on the outskirts of the city... Yes, I would be a poor one to minister in God's name to the sick. That day in Rome, and I traded clothes with a beggar that I might know the feeling of wretchedness at first hand. Oh. Even now my flesh crawls at the thought of the filthy rags that covered it. And now the smell of decay that comes from these walls makes me faint. Noble men devote their lives to nursing the living dead behind that gate. But I could not bear to look at them. Their diseased, ravaged faces and...
For the love of God, good sir, I beg you have pity on one whom God has afflicted with the dread disease of leprosy.
Francis pulled his horse to a stop.
Alms.
Here. Here is my purse.
Your purse, my lord.
There is gold inside it. But hold out your hand.
But I am a leper, my lord. You must not come here.
Hold out your hand, dear brother. Here is the purse. And now I kiss that afflicted hand in reverence. For truly you who have suffered so greatly must be very near the heart of our dear Lord.
Oh, thank you, great sir. Thank you.
We embraced as brothers. And suddenly compassion let me see his ravaged face as beautiful. I have conquered fear and horror. I thank you, my Lord. From my heart, I thank you. Such happiness as I know now, I have never felt before. Now, Francis often visits the leper hospital and spends hours talking with the inmates and attending to their needs. And with all the ardor of his soul, he prays for guidance that he may find his rightful place in the world. Then, one day, he comes upon a poor, half-ruined church in a field outside the city walls. It is the church of San Damiano, and on its wall is a very old crucifix, skillfully and lovingly painted by some long-forgotten artist. Here is reality, the utmost of suffering and defeat, yet the greatest of triumphs. The answer to all the world's problems is here, if one can but read it. Love that surpasses all other love, limitless compassion, infinite generosity. O my crucified Lord, I love you so greatly. My heart could break with the pain of its loving. Show me what you would have me do, that my love of you may bear fruit.
Francis, go and repair my church, which, as you see, is falling into ruin.
Was it a voice that spoke to me? Or a thought so suddenly strong, it was like a voice? Go and repair his church, he said. I will need money. More money than I have in my purse. I will find it. I must. The call has come. I must obey it. Francis quickly turned all his possessions into money. Money he must use in the service of the Lord. But not everyone understood his generosity. His father, the elder Bernardone, shrewd businessman that he was, had scant patience with his son. And so, a few days later, in the home of Guido, Bishop of Assisi...
Good people of Assisi, no doubt you all know the purpose for which we are assembled here. Pietro Bernardone, here on my right, has instituted legal proceedings against his son, Francis. Signor Bernardone, will you tell us in your own words why you have taken so serious a step? A step that must be painful to you as well as to your son.
Painful, my Lord Bishop. It's no more painful than it would be to prosecute any thief and swindler. This thief who bears my name came rushing home the other day, loaded his horse with several bolts of cloth from my store, drove to the public market and sold them. Sold them at any price he could get for them into the bargain. Not only that, but sold the horse as well.
I understood you to say the horse was his.
His to use. But in reality, no more his to sell than was the cloth. Surely you agree, my Lord Bishop.
Well, perhaps. Let us pass on to the question of the use that was made of the money.
Use? Misuse, you mean? The money he took to the priest in charge of the little church of San Damiano. The priest had far more sense than he had. Told him the money was not his to give away and refused to accept it. Whereupon, as if it were so much worthless paper, Francis tossed it down and forgot all about it.
Did the boy then return home?
Not he. For some time he remained with the priest of San Damiano. When he did finally return home, how did he come? In beggar's rags, with a crowd of scoffing townspeople at his heels. It was the most humiliating moment I've ever known.
And what action did you take then?
The action any father would take. I gave him the beating he deserved and shut him up in his room.
And did Francis return the money?
He did not. He gave me some cock and bull story about it being no longer his to return, since he had offered it to the church. I told him I would have him into court. To that the young scamp had the audacity to reply that he had vowed his life to the service of God, and therefore must be tried not in the civil courts, but in our bishop's court. I appeal to you, my lord. If this sort of thing is allowed to continue, I will be reduced to penury.
Well, now, do I understand you want to disinherit your son, Signor Bernardone?
That's exactly what I want. Certainly no man can blame me.
Just a moment. Francis Bernardone?
Yes, my Lord Bishop.
You have heard the charges your father brings against you. Have you anything to say in your own defense?
I have nothing to say, my Lord.
If, as you say, you want to be God's servant, I advise you to return the money which your father demands. It is not rightfully yours, so I am certain God would not want it used in his service. Return the money, Francis. Then perhaps we may heal this sad quarrel between your father and yourself.
My lord, I give back the money gladly. Not only the money, but all I wear was given me by my father and is rightfully his. He shall have the clothes as well.
Young Bernardone has spirit. See? He's removing all his clothes and dropping them there at his father's feet along with the purse.
Listen, everybody. You shall now call Pietro Bernardone my father. Henceforth I desire to say only, Our Father, who art in heaven.
In a rough cloak supplied by the bishop, Francis left the bishop's court. He was homeless and penniless, and as yet his vocation had not been revealed to him. One chapter of his life had ended, the chapter of his carefree youth. Soon his mission would begin. 3 years go by, years spent in the rebuilding of San Damiano by the labor of his own hands, in visiting his friends the lepers, in discovering and repairing another almost ruined church, the tiny church of St. Mary of the Angels, better known as the Porciuncula. Then one morning at Mass, as he listens to the gospel for the day,
and as you go, preach the message, the kingdom of heaven is at hand. Cure the sick, raise the dead, cleanse the lepers, cast out devils. Freely you have received, freely give.
Do not keep gold or silver or money in your girdles, no wallet for your journey, nor 2 tunics, nor sandals, nor staff. For the laborer deserves his living.
Those were his words to his disciples, and why not to me? Freely I have received the joy of his friendship. Why shouldn't I as freely give it to others? I have neither gold, nor silver, nor wallet, nor staff. Why shouldn't I go forth as they went, simply telling the story of his life and death and glorious resurrection? There are my friends, the workmen, gathered there in the field for lunch. Perhaps they will listen.
Francis!
Yes?
Francis! Come and rest with us a while, Francis. Have you finished your work on the church?
Almost.
You look happy. What have you found? Buried treasure?
Yes, my brothers. I have found treasure buried where all who seek can find. Listen to our sisters, the birds. How merrily they sing. See how gaily our brother, the sun, showers his golden rays on all the world. They and we are all God's creatures. Why shouldn't we rejoice in his goodness together?
What? A sermon? Keep still and listen.
My brothers, you will say that there is sickness and death in the world, and poverty and great suffering. I say to you, look upon these things, too, as instruments of God's love. Sickness and suffering are things of a moment, a day, a year. They will pass and be forgotten forever in the eternal joy of heaven. What is death but the opening of a gate through which, if we will, we may pass to the presence of the blessed? And poverty. My lady, poverty. She is blessed, for she walked the paths of Judea with our Lord himself. She is very beautiful, my lady poverty, and very wise. Well, she knows that the burden of many possessions hinders our progress to the realities of God's kingdom. Accept the lady poverty as your friend. Let her teach you of her wisdom. Accept her.
Perhaps Francis does not realize it, but his great mission has begun. His simple words, his earnestness, the brightness of his handsome young face wins for him increasing numbers of hearers. Barefooted, with a piece of rope girding his single rough garment at the waist, he walks from town to town preaching his simple gospel of love for Christ and one's fellow men, and joyful confidence in God's goodness. 2 other young men come to join him now. Peter Cattaneo, a lay canon of the cathedral, and Bernard of Quintavalli, when they ask him what they may do to serve the Lord.
It's too big a question for me to decide. God must decide for me. We will all 3 go to the church, and after we've asked his guidance, we will open the Bible, see what passage our eyes are led to.
If thou wilt be perfect, go sell what thou hast and give to the poor, and thou shalt have treasure in heaven.
Any man will come after me. Let him deny himself, take up his cross, and follow me.
And he commanded them that they should take nothing for the journey.
Brothers, 3 times have we opened the Bible, and the 3 passages make a complete whole. God has heard and...
3. But he's so wasted, so frail.
Oh, you young brothers know little of our Father. It is penance and much fasting that have wasted his body. It is tears of sorrow for the sins of the world that have almost washed the sight from his eyes. His body is too frail to house the great spirit that lives within it. Soon I think that spirit will be freed of the flesh. But mind, when I speak of penance and tears, that our Father has always performed his penances joyfully and for love, and his tears have been only half sadness and the rest joy. He is the happiest of men, our Father.
And what does he do all day there in the hut, Brother Leo?
He prays, and for hours at a time, while his body remains kneeling in the hut, his spirit is wrapped in close communion with God. Only the other night I went to see if all was well with him, and found him kneeling among the trees as our Lord knelt in the garden.
Could you hear his words?
Only a few. I stole up through the trees, and as I came near, he raised his face to heaven. There was such brightness in his face as I have never seen. I strained my ears for his words and heard him say, "Who art thou, O my most sweet God? And what am I, most vile worm and worthless servant?" It was as if the small spark of knowledge that lives in most of us had become in him a great flame, and in its brightness he contemplated and understood the infinite. Then he saw me and gently reproached me for spying on him, and I returned here.
Brothers, our father comes forth from the hut. Where is he? I don't see him.
There, standing with his face to the rising sun. He doesn't see us. He's watching that great bird that is flying towards us from the east.
What bird can it be? It's larger than the largest eagle.
It is a seraph, such as the prophets described of old. A seraph with arms extended, as it were, upon a cross.
It approaches our father.
It embraces him.
He's wrapped in its brightness as in a great fire.
The seraph has faded now, and our father has fallen to the ground. Come quickly, we must go to him.
Father Francis, are you alive?
Yes, Brother Leo. Give me your hand. I have no strength to rise.
Father, your hands, your feet, the marks of crucifixion.
Speak to no one of these marks, brothers. The world would not understand.
Neither do I understand, Father Francis. What is this we have seen?
I have no words to tell you, brother. You have seen that for which there are no words.
So, in the last chapter of Francis' life, came the great mystery of the stigmata, wounds similar to our Lord's in his hands, feet, and side. There were less than 2 years left of this chapter, years of great bodily pain, of increasing blindness, little moments of darkness before the bright light of heaven should envelop him forever. Now it is October the 3rd of the year 1226, the 45th year of Francis Bernardoni's life. The brothers surround his bed. One by one he has given them his blessing.
Our sisters, the larks are singing praises to the Lord. Let us join our voices with theirs.
How can we sing when our hearts are heavy? How can we rejoice when we know you'll soon be taken from us?
My son, I at least shall rejoice. I shall welcome Sister Death when she comes. Until she comes, let us recite a psalm. Brother Leo, will you begin?
I shall try. I cried unto the Lord with my voice. I made supplication to the Lord.
I cried to thee, O Lord. I said, thou art my hope, my portion in the land of the living.
Bring my soul out of prison, that I may praise thy name. The just wait for me until thou reward me.
This is The Hour of St. Francis, featuring Ozzie and Harriet Nelson. We'd like you to meet Mr. George McNeil. Age, well, let's say he's about 35. Average height, average weight, medium build, medium-colored hair. I'd say that's a pretty good description of him. He's a pretty average fellow. Right now, he's in church. Right now, he's really worth watching. See how intently he's listening to the sermon. Yes, sir, George is really taking this one in. His eyes are open, likewise his mouth. Every now and then, he nods vigorous agreement to one of Father Albert's sentences. And in concluding this little sermon on patience, I want to give you something to take home with you. It's just one sentence, but it's very powerful. It's taken from the official morning prayer of the church. This is the way it reads. And may the Lord direct our hearts in the love of God and the patience of Christ. When we think of the cross and how much Christ suffered in silence for us, how can we lose patience and complain? Let's try to be more patient. Let's say every morning, may the Lord direct our hearts in the love of God and the patience of Christ. God bless you. Mass over, George McNeil emerges briskly from the church. Not even a leaden sky and a prophetic drop of rain on his new hat can dampen the glow of pious satisfaction which beams from his face. He catches sight of Father Albert at the bottom of the steps.
Good morning, Father Albert.
Oh, good morning, George. Mass alone this morning?
Bessie took the kids to early Mass. I let her have the car today. She's going to pick me up here. Father, I want to tell you that was a wonderful sermon you gave this morning. Really down the alley and right on the beam.
Well, thanks. I don't think it was quite that good, though. What was the sermon about, George?
It was all about patience. Don't you remember, Father?
I just wanted to see if you did.
Yes, sirree. People like us haven't got a thing to complain about. It's just like you said, all we have to put up with is a lot of little things, like getting up on time in the morning, keeping happy when the breakfast is late, and waiting for the streetcars in the rain. Everything you said hit close to home.
Well, that's what I hoped it would do, George.
It really rang the gong with me. You know, I know at least 30 people who should have been sitting right there putting on the shoe because it fit them. They really need it.
Oh, they do.
Confidentially, I wish my wife had been there, Father. Bessie's a wonderful girl, but she likes to blow off steam, and I'm the one who has to take it. In fact, I think I'll recite the whole sermon for her while we're driving home. Oh, excuse me, Father. Here comes my car. No? No, I guess it isn't. Anyway, I better go stand right on the corner, or Bessie will just keep going round and round the block, burning up my gasoline. Goodbye, Father. It was a beautiful sermon. Sure hit home.
Bye, son.
Let's follow this inspired George McNeil down to the corner. The afterglow of the beautiful sermon on patience still shines on his brow. He stands there waiting, with the stray raindrop sliding down his nose. 15 minutes later, George is still waiting. But he isn't standing, and he isn't glowing. He's pacing up and down, glaring at his watch, muttering words that aren't nice to say on Sunday. What's the matter, George? Remember that beautiful sermon you just heard? Sermon on patience? Ah, at last.
Hurry up, George. I'm parked double.
Take it easy, old man.
Where in the world have you been? I've been standing out here in the pouring rain. Move over, will you? If I let me drive, we'll never get home.
Oh, George, I'm so sorry. I started in plenty of time.
Well, how is that possible, Bessie? I've been standing on this corner for 45 minutes.
Well, that's very strange unless you got up and walked out when Mass was half over. I started in plenty of time.
Pick me up this evening, maybe.
Well, I went out into the garage to get the car, and it had a flat.
A flat? Another one? Well, that's the third one we've had this month. How did you get it?
How did I get it?
Well, yes, who else?
George Anthony McNeil. When was the last time I drove this car?
Well, that's not the point.
It was exactly 3 days ago. Who's been driving it since then?
I have, but I didn't get a flat tire.
Okay, if it makes you happy. I did it.
And you just drove around town for 3 days without noticing at all that the left front tire was flat on the ground with a big nail sticking in it.
Oh, of course. I'm always the one that's wrong.
George, look where you're driving. You almost took that man's fender off.
Well, I can't look and sneeze.
George, for heaven's sake. George, let me take the wheel. I'll drive and you sneeze.
I'm coming down with bronchitis or pneumonia or something. Standing out there in a downpour for nearly an hour.
Oh, George, stop exaggerating.
As soon as we get home, I'm going to go right to bed. I can feel the pneumonia in my shoulder blades.
Oh, now, George, you know perfectly well you promised to take the children to see that new Western. You've been telling them all week they could go.
I don't remember a thing about it.
And so on and so on. While George scrapes the paint from nearby fenders, jumps red lights, skids around corners between sneezes. Now, George, is that a nice way to act just 40 minutes after you've listened to a beautiful sermon on patience? It's raining cats and dogs now, which doesn't help George any.
Now, what's the matter with that big dope in front of us? What's he parked out in the middle of the street for, to admire the scenery or something?
George, don't you try passing him. There are cars parked on both sides of the street. You'll have to back up.
I will not back up. I've got as much right as any taxpayer to drive up this street.
Well, paying your taxes doesn't give you the right to get yourself arrested for disturbing the peace.
I'll have somebody arrested for blocking the highway with that piece of junk. Probably some woman stopping to powder her nose.
Well, how do you know it's a woman? I can't see anything for the rain.
Well, who else but a woman had stopped dead in front of me when it's pouring down rain and I haven't had anything except 1 cup of coffee for breakfast? I'll tell that dizzy dame where to get off, blocking up the whole street.
George, will you please control yourself? George!
Somebody's going to get a big surprise.
Yes, sir. Somebody's going to get an awfully big surprise. But it's not going to be the people in the other car.
Hey, you in there. What's the big-eyed... Oh, gee.
Good morning, Mr. McNeil.
Good morning, sister.
Sister Louise, this is Betty McNeil's father.
Oh, the angels must have sent you, Mr. McNeil. We've been sitting here just praying for help.
Oh, can I be of any can I assist you, sisters?
Well, something's gone wrong with the car. It keeps making a noise like flop, flop.
It seems to sag on the left side here.
Well, it sounds like a flat. I'll take a look, sister. Yeah, that left front tire's flat, all right.
Oh, dear. Now, what on earth are we going to do? We have to go way over to the hospital and get back by noon.
Well, I'll fix it for you, sister. Where's your jack?
Jack? Oh, I know what it is. But it's in the basement. None of the sisters know how to use it, so we never bring it along.
But you've got to have a jack. I'll get one out of my car.
We're so sorry to put you to all this trouble, Mr. McNeil.
Oh, it's no trouble at all, sister. I'll be back in a minute. Silly thing.
That's what you think.
George, you're all wet.
Well, it's raining out here. Now, don't start asking a lot of questions. Just get the jack out from under the back seat.
It isn't there, George.
Well, where is it?
Home in the garage.
What?
Now, before you start yelling, because I forgot to put it in the back of the car after the man used it this morning, the man didn't use it because it's broken because you rolled the car over it and you never took it out to be fixed.
Well, I've got to have a jack.
Well, there's a filling station 3 blocks down the street.
3 blocks? Oh, for goodness
George,
sakes.
remember, this is Sunday and you just came from church.
Remember the sermon, George? It was all about patience. But all you're thinking about now is jacking up the car, while Sister Margaret stands in the rain, holding an umbrella over you.
Well, anyway, we did remember to bring an umbrella.
Yeah, that helps, sister.
I wouldn't have come out in this rain at all. But it's the only chance I've had all week to go see Sister Josephine. You know Sister, don't you, Mr. McNeil?
Yes, I ought to, sister. She taught me in the 3rd grade. Taught my daughter Betty, too.
She's been in the hospital for 2 months.
Oh, she has? Gee, that's too bad.
The doctor says she should have gone 6 months ago. But she said she just couldn't give in. We're short 2 teachers this year. Reverend Mother didn't even know Sister was ill.
She must be pretty old now.
Yes, I guess she must be. Somehow, though, it's so hard to think of her as being old. She was so patient. She never complained. All those stairs and the convent and the school, I don't see how she ever made it.
Well, being in the hospital's not so bad as long as she keeps cheerful. I remember when I had my perforated appendectomy, I kept myself laughing all the time just thinking about the day I was going to walk out of there.
Sister Josephine won't be walking out.
You mean she's got to stay?
The doctors told us this morning there's no hope for Sister Josephine.
Oh, gee, that's awful. I mean, gosh, that's awful.
The doctor says she must be suffering terribly, but she's so patient. She says she's ready to go if the Lord wants her, but she can wait until it's time.
Gee, I can't get over it. Sister Josephine.
She certainly is an example for anybody. I'm afraid this umbrella isn't much help, Mr. McNeil. You're soaking wet.
Oh, it's nothing to worry about now, sister. It's all fixed.
I don't know how to thank you. Sister Louise and I will say a rosary for you tonight.
Oh, thanks.
Goodbye, Mr. McNeil.
Goodbye, sister.
Well, George, are you a mess? You're dripping like a shower, your hands are full of grease, you're cold and you're hungry. You ought to be mad clean through. What's the matter, George? You've got such a funny look on your face.
Well, I saw your dizzy female. Did you tell Sister Margaret to stop powdering your nose and get that piece of junk off the highway? Hurry up and get in the car, dear. You look like a bundle of wet wash.
Bessie, the sisters were on their way to the hospital to see Sister Josephine. She's not going to get better.
Oh, not Sister Josephine. Oh, that's terrible. She's been at the school so long and all the kids are crazy about her.
Yes, she certainly earned her rest.
Oh, George, you are catching cold. How do your shoulder blades feel?
Oh, there's nothing the matter with me. A little hot coffee won't cure.
Oh, how was Father Albert's sermon? You didn't tell me.
Oh, Bessie, it was a wonderful sermon.
Well, tell me about it.
Maybe later when we get home. I'd like to think about it a little myself first.
Poor old George. He had to learn the hard way that patience is not something you can carry out of church with you after a good sermon, like your hat. Patience is a virtue which George, and all of us who really want it, will get by working at it. We can help ourselves tremendously by starting every day with that brief, powerful prayer. May the Lord direct our hearts in the love of God and the patience of Christ. This quarter hour has been brought to you by the Third Order of St. Francis, featuring Ozzie and Harriet Nelson. The Third Order is a living society of men and women in the world who, in their businesses and professions and in their ordinary family lives, nevertheless dedicate themselves to the ideals of St. Francis, and who with St. Francis pray, Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. And where there is sadness, joy. Amen.